Hi there, my name is Mike Conway and it's a pleasure to be with you for this very special conference. I'm looking forward to sharing some thoughts and ideas about the work I've been doing with the Socceroos in the A-League and overseas in dramatically improving team performance. Most importantly, I want to share with you the exciting new learning program which many football coaches around the world are undertaking, which is having a significant impact on their team performance. Now, at the end of the session, I'll provide you with a few links which will be helpful in your coaching. Technical, tactical, physical. These have been the hallmarks of most sports coaching programs over the last few decades. And in fact, you could argue they've also been the platform for most businesses too. Do you play a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2 or maybe a 4-2-2-2 even? Are we fit enough to do an average of over 10 kilometres per player per game? Can each player hit a 25-yard pass from both left and right feet? All important stuff, of course, but strangely enough, from my experience of working with teams who want to grow from being an okay team to a great team, the focus is something very different. Now, what's emerged in recent years has been a game changer. The recognition that the biggest single thing which affects performance is the emotional agility and stability of the individuals and the collective. Yet coaches and players aren't necessarily trained in identifying this or improving this. Now, let me give you a few examples. Over the last few years in Formula One, Mercedes-AMG have led the pack. Now, some might argue the car or driver was better, but in truth, the winning formula for Mercedes has been the total team environment. The All Blacks are the most successful team when compared to any other sporting team. Now sure, they're technically and tactically and physically savvy, but when it comes to the emotional and mental side of the game, there are few who can compare. And then we can look in our own backyard. The Sydney FC team in recent years perhaps, maybe the Australian netball team, the Australian cricket team of 2021-22, or what about Ash Barty's win? A deep connection built between all players and a commitment to a winning mentality. The challenge has been that in the past these skills have been perceived as soft and not as easy to measure. However, they are far from soft. They are essential skills. And people with high levels of emotional intelligence are able to self-appraise effectively, can control emotion, are open-minded and want to succeed. Also, measurement tools are now emerging which enable coaches to assess improvements which correlate with improvements in game performance as well. For example, we now know if a team has a deeper trust, then it's more likely to achieve higher levels of performance. We also know if a leader is more respected by their team results are more likely to be positive. We also know that if the communication flow in a team is positive and clear, then the team is more likely to achieve positive results. And we also know where a team culture is a supportive one and its members feel they belong and are cared for, particularly when things aren't going so well, then commitment to the cause will occur. Now, already you can see that this is a big agenda. We're talking of activities which cuts across many areas of life: emotion, communication, leadership, culture and resilience. Now, my work in this field has its foundations in my first experiences as a university student in England. I got interested in the health education of teenagers. I've always been fascinated by how people learn and what they learn. I strongly believe that if you teach young people at a young age the benefits of a healthy lifestyle, the incidence of illness, both physical and mental, will be minimized later in life. Now, maybe you're thinking this seems so obvious, but in the 1980s it wasn't, and here we are in the 2020s and the mental health of the nation is a bigger issue than ever. Okay, back to Sydney FC. At the time when Terry McFlynn approached me to help the team, they had been floundering. Now, I'm not suggesting I fixed their problems, but my focus and development on the types of activities I described earlier was all new. Not just attention on the support needed for the performance improvement of each individual, but the enhancement of energy, information and interaction between everyone involved. 3 years at Sydney FC, 3 years at the Socceroos, working in cricket, Olympic teams and more recently basketball teams in Adelaide and Perth Glory, have shown more clearly how we can improve team performance. Now, if still not convinced, the same approach is now being taken with many high-profile organisations who also see these essential skills as critical for team success. Now, a few years ago, a major study on job skills needed to meet economic growth requirements was undertaken by one of the big accounting firms. Now, that confirmed that the skills gap for our future success was around essential skills, skills to deal with the challenges of the workplace and in life in general. Yet in schools, university, at home, in sports fields and in the office environment, not that too many of those exist right now, the focus on this was minimal or non-existent. To find leaders of organisations who could understand this, few and far between, but that's where we always start. Of course, even when you do find such people, they need to be brave, as changing our emotional responses to things doesn't happen overnight. This needs a lot of work, but when integrated with the technical, tactical and physical aspects of the game, well, the results speak for themselves. So this is what I was essentially building at Sydney FC. The Socceroos, a number of Olympians travelling to Tokyo, and many companies including ASX, EY, Westpac, Woolworths. Those that have taken some or all of the elements of the programs have seen the benefits. Now, the programs are practical and aim to improve emotional agility, resilience, leadership, communication, decision making and such things as problem solving. They're all supported by a measurement tool we created and made freely available, which we called EARL. Now, by having a measurement tool, we can demonstrate improvement both before and after. Now, a couple of years ago, along came Football Coaches Australia. They had listened to their coaches, who had declared the need for much more knowledge and experience in aspects other than the technical and tactical aspects of the game. A perfect match. This led to us building the FCA XV Essential Skills Program. Now, in developing the program, I worked on the idea of building a program for coaches which could be undertaken in small bite sizes on a mobile phone or on an iPad or laptop. I know how busy everyone is these days. I also know from experience that online learning can be a bit tedious, so wanted to find a way of making this learning more fun. We know that if we make a training session fun, people will more likely buy into the session and remember it too. So let's take a dig into the program. The program is broken down into 5 distinct but connected modules comprising 103 mini subjects in total. That's around 20 subjects per module. Each subject will take on average around 15 to 20 minutes to complete. Now, why don't we have a look around at the subject index? It's very comprehensive and covers many areas, all which have a connection with the work you do as a coach or a parent. Now, I can say that I've used each and every one in the work I've been doing in this field, in elite sport, and in fact in everyday life. Here are the subject areas for the module on emotional intelligence. Now, leadership. Communication. Culture. And finally, resilience. The program differs significantly from other programs in the following ways. Now, you can undertake any subject you like in any order. You can also undertake a subject at any time of the day to suit you. Each subject is delivered in a virtual world environment. Each subject is delivered in a unique way and in a bite-sized, fun, multimedia learning. It's experiential, gamified learning online. Complete any module and the subject quizzes successfully and you will receive a certificate from Football Coach Australia and 30 CPD points from Football Australia. You can complete the quizzes in one go or each time you complete a subject. Complete all 5 modules and you will get recognition for prior learning from our higher education partners, who include the University of Wollongong and ACPE. Others will be joining throughout the year. So just imagine, this program might inspire you to undertake higher education too. All of this sits in a unique virtual world which you can access from your personal device. Once you've signed up, you can access the modules by entering the virtual world and heading to the relevant module. Because each of the subjects are located somewhere in the building, it leads to plenty of curiosity. Those of you who like computer games or have players who like computer games will enjoy this immensely. But don't worry, if you're not a gaming type, you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. There are lots of different types of learning materials in the world: videos, podcasts, blogs, animations, infographics. I'm sure you'll find something which grabs your attention. To make things easy, we've provided a map of where all the subjects are, a bit like a typical shopping centre map. Not only can you see what the subjects are, but you can see their location in the world. Navigation is simple, using just a mouse or trackpad. My suggestion is have your notebook with you so you can jot thoughts down when you're learning. So let's get into the building. The first thing you come to is a welcome from the FCA President, Phil Moss.
Hello there and welcome to the FCA College. My name is Phil Moss and I'm the President of Football Coaches Australia. I'm a very, very proud President. Football Coaches Australia was designed for coaches by coaches. And by that we mean a collective voice and an organisation that is absolutely passionate about the role in football that coaches play and how difficult a role it can be. The key to being successful is being open-minded and continuously learning along the way and sharpening those skills that get the best out of people ultimately. We were formed a couple of years ago and we are determined to take FCA to the world and bring the world to football coaches and in Australia. And you can be anywhere in the universe and tap into this unique online virtual learning opportunity that FCA College presents. There are so many nooks and crannies that you can go down to sharpen your skills and enhance your learning. It's up to you where you take it. I encourage everyone to put away distractions, put them to the side, really immerse yourself in this opportunity that our partnership with XVENTURE has provided and enjoy the ride.
Notice the different faculties, one for every module. Each faculty has different rooms where the subjects are located. There's also another lift which has another range of rooms, including a rooftop football pitch. We've also included a library, a movie theatre and a bookstore, which we can check out later. So let's go and have a look at a couple of the faculties. You can start wherever you want in the college, but if you're doing every subject, I suggest you start at the Emotional Intelligence module. Learning something about yourself before helping others might be a smart thing to do. Now into the lift, and let's just have a quick look at each of the floors. To the first floor, we're in the Emotional Intelligence reception area. Now as we take a look around, there are posters, messages, quotes and TV screens around the area. Click onto some of these things and you will find your subjects. Of course, the map helps you in locating these. Here are a couple of subjects, a video on emotion and an article about self-awareness. One of the most important things to learn as a coach. Now back into the lift and onto the second floor, which is the training room. Same again, subjects are sitting in different locations around the room. Now here's a cool video on the wall.
We need to consider that our identity is influenced by those we are with and those we have relationships with. When we have positive relationships with people, our psychological and personal well-being is enhanced, as is our self-esteem. When people struggle in building relationships, particularly due to lower social skills, it can lead to many issues including depression, loneliness and frustration. As a coach, it's also worth noting that those that have good social skills get help quicker, seem to get better sooner, and overcome injury more effectively. Evidence also suggests there is a strong correlation between high level of social skills and success. To develop these skills, your focus is outwards. Rather than thinking about how you feel and thinking about how you are affected, you're more interested and curious about how others feel. You're watching, observing, and showing interest in others, and as you do, you are likely to build a stronger rapport and bond. Your observation becomes integral to your interaction with others, as is your collaboration and negotiation with others too. These skills are learned through life and can be improved throughout with practice. With better social skills comes better communication, as people listen more and speak effectively. A greater achievement in goals and less tension is typically experienced as people seem to work better to solve problems. Overall, there is a strong correlation between high social skills and emotional intelligence.
There are many other subjects in here, including this very practical article on motivating your players. So let's check out the basement in the faculty. Here we have a number of laboratories. Now I'm keen to help you understand yourself and understand a bit about how the mind works so you can help others too. I've added this little animation which provides a simple explanation on how the brain works. Have you ever heard the statement, if you can control your mind, you can control your life? Here's another different type of video, 1.9 dealing with empathy. Now, each time I've created something, I've attempted to give you real stories which you can also use. Picture this, a game at the Sydney Football Stadium. Sydney FC's left back Michael Zulo had once again had a huge game. Up and down the pitch, and certainly one of the best wing backs in recent years. Late in the game and after another run, he was trying to get back to his position in the back line. Picture David Carney. He sees that Michael is tiring. He has a conversation in the middle of the action and covers him. He was aware of the difficulty his teammate was experiencing and had come to his aid. Empathy 101. I want you to picture another scene. It's the Hordern Pavilion on a Friday night back in 2007. I'm working on the production of a dinner for 1,000 people to raise funds for Steve Waugh's Foundation for Kids with Rare Diseases. Now it's nearing midnight and there's still a huge amount to do to be ready for Saturday evening. But the unpaid team is fully committed to achieve the goal of raising $1 million. We take a natural break as the lights are being checked and the staging is being put in place. I happen to be with Steve Waugh just at that break time. I asked him this question: why did you start this journey? He told me that the impetus and energy which took him from cricket into philanthropy was through a meeting with Mother Teresa in Calcutta. At the meeting, he felt overwhelmed with the compassion she had for the poorest of the poor. Psychologist Jonathan Haidt called this feeling elevation. It was the inspiration Steve needed to devote his life to charity. It was an overwhelming moment for me personally too. My dad was a massive follower of Mother Teresa's work, and in my wallet I had a photo of her that he had given me. I showed it to Steve. It was a special moment, a clarity in belief that the focus on others, the support of others, the caring of others is one of our greatest gifts. Steve puts it like this on his website: There was a calming aura about her. When you were in her presence, you definitely felt more serene and peaceful. Now look, the dinner was an incredible success and set the tone for a commitment to support kids who need real help. The Steve Waugh Foundation continues its great work as we move into the third decade of the 21st century. Okay, I'm sure you get the idea. We've tried to make it fun, interesting and practical by making each faculty's rooms totally different. You can go and explore each area, then choose the subject, or just choose the subject on the map and go for it. The subjects are all treated differently too. Here's a blog type subject in the communication module. Or this blog, 5.3. And here's a podcast on active listening. And why not take a look at this video in the Leadership Faculty 2.6? It's all animated. Who is your favourite coach? Is it Guardiola, Klopp, Ferguson, Lippi, Ancelotti, Wenger? Whoever it may be, one attribute seems to be a common trait: being authentic. And what does authentic mean to you? To me, it's about being true to yourself, being closely connected with what you feel, say and do, and making choices which connect to your values. Be certain that once you don't do this, it takes very little time for people to mistrust. I've seen this time and time again. No doubt you have too. Bill George from the Harvard Business School is one of the leading thinkers around authentic leadership. I like his thinking as he's more interested in how we help people become more authentic rather than the debate about describing what is and what isn't authentic. His book, Authentic Leadership, and also Discover Your True North are both on my electronic bookshelf. I have dipped into them regularly and they provide us with a solid perspective on authentic leadership. I particularly like the metaphor of a compass having true purpose, knowing where and why you are heading to a particular place. We've also created some movie theatres where you can see specific movie clips linked to your module. I've also provided a special video on the latest research I've been working on with Perth Glory relating to on-field communication. This research programme continues on, but let's take a look at this video in its entirety. I hope you find it interesting and useful. Technical, tactical, physical, mental. The 4 pillars of elite sports teams. Now each week, coaches and their technical and support staff deliver programs aimed to fine-tune their athletes to win competitions. The first 3 pillars have become the bread and butter of all elite teams. More recently, there's been an acknowledgement and inclusion of building mental and emotional programs too. This area of work includes the emotional well-being of both players and coaches. It can also bind and integrate all the 4 pillars together and provide the extra dimension, or as sports teams call it, the 1%ers. Where people live and exist, then some form of communication is being undertaken. Effective communication can make the difference between strong and weak relationships, happiness and sadness, strong mental well-being or deep anxiety, peace or war. Listen to individuals' views of their workplace and their home and the major improvement piece that is flagged more than any other. It's communication. Yet, surprisingly, this is the one area in elite sport that is not analysed or measured. There's no benchmark, no standard practice. There's no model, nor is there a structured training program on how to inform, instill or advise individuals and teams to improve and achieve greater on and off-field communication, which will impact results in performance. Now, this seems to be particularly relevant when individuals playing in a team come from different cultures and speak different languages. Here are just 2 examples. In each case, I've been personally involved. In a recent game between two A-League clubs, there was 15 minutes to play and one team was up 1-0. When the whistle blew at the end of the game, the other team had won 2-1. What happened? Conversations and discussions have since taken place with the coach, technical staff, captain and players. Despite all the technical and statistical analysis of the game, one thing was missing. Open and honest communication between players on the field did not take place. Two players were fatigued but did not seek help or support. One player was angry and frustrated. Another player was dwelling on previous mistakes. One young player was fearful about communicating his concerns to a senior player. Three players would not and did not communicate with their colleagues. This is a recipe for failure. Example 2, an EPL game. A player who has recently joined the club still feels less than confident about sharing his thoughts on field because he's a new kid on the block. His communication to his mates is sporadic and less than clear, made more difficult by some of his colleagues being different nationalities and cultures, so usual signs and signals don't work. As the greatest footballer to play the game of football once said, "The head talks to the heart and the heart talks to the feet." Now note this extract from a recent article written by Wayne Rooney for the Sunday Times newspaper in England. Here's what he says: "You only work as a unit if you communicate. Most teams have 3 or 4 players who shout at the others, but at Manchester United, everyone was vocal. Wherever I played, I tell young players to shout at me and not be shy. You can't spot every opposition run and everyone needs to tell each other what they see. The result of every player communicating can be incredible." With Everton in 2017, we went to the Etihad and played 4-4-2. Our plan being to let Manchester City have the ball wide and crowd the middle of the pitch, knowing they weren't going to hurt us by crossing into our box. We almost won, and they scored late on through Raheem Sterling to draw 1-1. But it was one of the toughest 90 minutes I've played. It was just them constantly coming at us. You had to concentrate and keep talking. You knew if one player forgot to, you could end up in trouble and concede 4 or 5. In 2018, I started to undertake some research on the subject of on-field communication. This is what I identified. Currently, there are no communication standards in any elite sport globally. Currently, communication is not measured in elite sport, both individually and as a team. In reviewing performance, much analysis is undertaken regarding physical, technical and tactical patterns of play. Yet, there is no knowledge of the levels of communication which may or may not influence or impact these patterns of play. I put some questions together which I gave to some of the best coaches in Australia. What place has communication got in team sport? How can we measure this? Can we build a communication standard in team sport? Is it useful or relevant for team sport? How can we measure its use? How can we measure its impact on performance over time and as an aggregate? Can we build metrics and benchmarks? How does this impact individuals outside of sport? To each of the questions, the answer was a resounding yes. I also went outside of our game and asked coaches working at the elite level in other sports too. They confirmed that by improving communication between individuals participating in a team, the team is likely to improve performance and also reduce the mistakes it makes. As a byproduct, those participating may find the development of communication on the field improves their communication off the field. 2 of the case studies we worked on included the Joeys preparing for a World Cup in Brazil and the Perth Glory Youth Academy squad. The coaches included Trevor Morgan, now Technical Director of the FA, Richie Garcia, Steve McGarry and Terry McFlynn from Perth Glory. In undertaking the research, initially we asked all players to assess their use of verbal cues on the field. Not unsurprisingly, there was a huge difference between the communication the players thought they were undertaking compared to the conversations they were actually having. A huge disparity leading to the creation of a robust research process. We concentrated the first detailed project on the Perth Glory Youth Academy. Firstly, we designed a communication standard which was accepted as a framework for developing a localised on-field communication programme. Gaining a consistent messaging method between the coaching staff was a second key step, followed by the delivery of these key messages to the players. The players' use of the messaging was then captured and analysed. It was obvious early on that the messaging was too complex and needed to be refined. Once refined, the players' use of the messages were again captured and analysed in parallel to passages of play. This is where there were significant opportunities for learning and improvement. Coaches were able to determine what the expected outcome would be. If players used key messages, they were able to compare this versus the actual experience. This could be then used to help players understand the significance of key messages at certain times. Not only were the coaches embracing this as well as the players, the coaches were developing specific drills to affect improved communication. The results of the research are significant. Perth Glory Youth Academy now utilise a key messages programme following from the development and analysis of player and coach communication. The outcome? The Academy won everything in their 2019-20 season. Take a look at the analysis of some of the key on-field communication terms. The analysis was undertaken in 2 11-a-side training games, pre and post. The numbers pre and post equate to the average times per minute the player used key messages. Notice the improvement between the pre and post game. In between the games, the coach provided the players with a summary of the key messages, terms he wanted them to use. Here are some of the comments from Terry McFlynn, who was involved in the study at Perth. I just wanted to share with you a few noticeable shifts in performance regarding the player communications project. Richie, Steve and myself experienced a few challenges early in regards to the on-field communication with our teams. In our initial address with XVENTURE, we brainstormed what the PGFC communication standard looked like. Once in agreement, we set about implementing these phrases and terms into our coaching language and delivery during the daily training sessions. We then revisited the standard and shortened it even more. This became easier delivery of the key messages we want to deliver on a daily basis. We've seen a considerable shift in the performance level of the players through their ability to communicate more clearly through the standard that's been developed. All the players have a clear understanding of what a particular statement means in any instance of the game. When we originally started this project with the youth team, it was a challenge. But as we progressed and the players grasped the communication standard and began implementing it to their own game, it became part of our coaching curriculum. Out of that group of players, 5 made their debuts in the Champions League and have subsequently signed professional contracts. Now, I firmly believe that the communication standard aided these players in developing their individual performances to a point where they have now gained professional contracts. Perth Glory have now made communication in the form of key messaging to be fully integrated in their training regime. In November 2020, Wellington Phoenix A-League team commenced the application of on-field communication standards in preparation for their new A-League Season 2. The first professional team to do so. Coach Afitale understood the significance that improved communication could offer to his team. Now take a look at the verbal improvement over 2 possession sessions for a small sample of group players. In between the session, the players were briefed on key messages to be used in the drills. Key message use for session 1, average of 9.7 per minute. Key messages used for session 2, average 13.4 per minute. A more detailed summary of on-field communication work undertaken at Perth Glory Academy and Wellington Phoenix will be included in a final research paper in late 2021. It will provide significant input for all coaches. In the meantime, coaches are encouraged to start to consider current on-field communication and how they can too obtain a major shift in performance, providing Australian soccer with a new edge. You've also been provided with a library with links to lots of great learning content. And finally, if you really like one of the books I've introduced you to, you can buy it in the bookstore. If you want to get your CPD points or an opportunity to use your newfound knowledge towards a university degree, successfully complete the multiple choice quizzes. Now here's what some of the coaches who have been undertaking the program have said about their experience.
I was just interested, why did you undertake the program that we set up?
To get something which was online, firstly, and it's very well put together in the fact that the resources on the course are massively diverse, right? So the different sports, different world leaders in different fields was quite engaging, and the online format of it was appealing, and at this moment with COVID and that was the only possible way to get things done.
I was looking for something for me, for myself. I do a lot of reading, which I really enjoy, but I just thought now is the time to do something. I'm on the computer, yes, but I'm doing it for me.
If you look at the national football curriculum and you look at anything that you see in terms of youth development, very little is focused on the psychological side. But if you look at the decision-making process of what the brain actually does, you realise that that's your starting point in terms of, behaviour, moods, all those things that a player may be experiencing away from training, they're bringing that to the training ground. So unless you actually understand that side of things, I don't think you're ever going to be able to coach players properly.
One of the parts, it was talking about how you have a chimp in your brain, and it's like something that makes you overthink. And I was very intrigued with that. Obviously, when something goes wrong, my first reaction would be to get angry. And so I tend to just calm myself down.
You're focusing on the technical, tactical, and that's important. But you've got to for me, you've got to start with a person. When you're coaching first, you've got to start with a person. So you have to have some sort of understanding of basic human psychology, in order to be a better coach.
I've heard people speak about it a bit and seen it promoted through things like LinkedIn with other high-level coaches doing it. Being out of tertiary study for a long time, I thought that I wouldn't be able to get through something like that, to be honest. But once I started on it, I put a few days into it and just sort of bunkered down and just got into it.
I found the program exciting, and the one thing which I loved, I ran the coach education program in Victoria here for about 10 or 11 years. And I've done hundreds of courses. I've put thousands of people through their badges. The one thing which I never try to do, I never try to lecture to the candidates. I try to tell them stories through the experiences which I had.
What I was trying to do as much as anything else is trying to get across that we also, in order for us to help others, we need to understand ourselves. Does that resonate with you at all?
As a coach, that's the first thing that you have to make sure that you're in a good frame of mind, because, if you're not, then that's going to obviously influence how you coach. So you've got to be in the right frame of mind to coach and to conduct a training session. Yeah, I would say definitely knowledge of self, is crucial. So knowing what your capabilities are, what your competencies are, what you can and can't do. I know as a coach where my weaknesses are and what I need to probably work on. It's taken me 40 years or 40 plus years to find it out. I
was just going to say the stuff I know now, I wish I knew, as I was growing up.
The resilience side of it is big, particularly working with young kids. How do you sort of teach that? How do you put experience in kids before it actually happens to them? How do you get them to appreciate stuff, whether it be the training environment, that sort of thing, before the moment's gone? How do you let a kid know that to stay in the game if he's not making the national team or had a setback when we know that there's going to be a massive turnover and you've got to stay in the game?
With the kids, especially with the communication part, I try to be in their shoes as well, but get them to understand that, you know, you need to talk properly, yeah, and, you know, break it down sometimes if a person doesn't understand it, instead of just getting angry and walking away, because, you know, some people ain't always at your level. So yeah, I try to take it into my sessions and pass it on to the kids. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
What it taught me is that you can't, as a coach, it's got to be about the players. It's not about you as a coach. So for me, it really is about the players, and you've always got to maintain that level of humility.
If you're a coach who's open-minded and wants to develop, you want to explore different things, and that's education, right? You have to want to go and source it yourself and find it. And, there should be more stuff like this.
It's really good. I honestly love it. I'm learning a lot more about myself.
Is there anything else that you remember that went, wow, I like that, that's an interesting thought when you were reading?
It was a quote, it was Barack Obama's quote though, about change. Sorry, I just have it written here.
Cool.
It says, sorry.
Okay.
It says, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek. Which I really felt that a lot. Just because, yeah, my past life, I kept wishing for a better life, thinking, when am I going to get better? When is my life going to get better? But I realised I had to make that step and change as well to know. So, yeah,
Wow.
That's one thing I try to tell the kids as well. If you want something, if you want a different life, you just have to change.
Can I say that you've done an amazing job, and for the benefit of football in Australia, I think we're very lucky to have somebody like you around. So appreciate it. And again, I absolutely love the program.
Since the program went live at Easter 2021, over 260 coaches from 10 countries have signed up to the program and have completed 1 to 5 modules. Here's how you sign up. As a special for coaches tuning in today, you can use this code to get a 15% discount when you sign up for any of the modules in the next 7 days. Okay, before you go, I've got one more thing for you. Something I've been trying to teach as many people as possible is the ability to improve your emotional agility. Improve this and you will improve your performance. Imagine what your team would be like if they were all improving their emotional agility at the same time. So here's a link to undertake your own personal emotional agility assessment, and it's free. It's called the EARL measure. And many of our top players have undertaken this very test, which has then led to us developing personal development programs for them. You can use the EARL measure as often as you'd like and use it with your teams too. Thanks for tuning in. That's all from me.